All right, Mr. Curtis. All right. Welcome, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Please give us an introduction of yourself and describe your qualifications for the County Clerk Registrar of Voters position with Shasta County.
Okay. First of all, I want to say I'm honored to apply for this position, both for the council and for the people that actually care. This is a rare opportunity. There's a lot of people that care about elections here, and people should be very proud of themselves and proud of the board because they haven't deserted them, and I don't think they should desert you. But essentially, I was a computer programmer, and I wrote the first code for the electronic voting machines back in 2000. And in the very first code that came out was the hack to allow it to choose whoever you wanted to choose. So I reported to Congress, reported to DOT, reported to everybody, and testified in 2004 to the United States Congress on this very issue. So that's where my interest came from. It's almost like a guilt interest, like I broke it, I better fix it. And so ever since then, I've been working on that with, all over the country. That's what basically caused me to become an election lawyer. And so I've done election law all across the country. We even did the 2016 Florida presidential contest against Donald Trump. We didn't win, by the way. And so we did that. We did stuff all over the place. And the thing with being a lawyer is you actually have to learn everything there is. So you have to learn every position, every law, everything that's done, and you have to dissect it. So you learn everything that goes on in election office very quickly, or you don't have a case. There's not a complicated process. The process of holding elections and running elections is actually very straightforward, but you have to do it within a framework of the law. And that is where people get sloppy and they run aground and then things go bad and everything gets messed up. I've been, let's go to here. I've been involved in voter registration, both in litigation of voter registration and in voter registration drives. And so I know how to do them inside and out. I've also been involved in document preparation for people in 2006. I'm not sure exact number. Florida went to a photo ID requirement. There was a lot of complaints that would now disenfranchise people that couldn't get records. So I helped set up the system where people that needed records could get their records. We could actually get them their licenses, we could get them their birth certificates, we could get them anything they needed, and we set it all up. It didn't cost the county anything, it didn't cost the people anything, and we got that all set up for them. So that kind of mitigated the whole, you can't go to voter ID with a photo because, we don't have people to be able to vote. The sad thing is, kind of the downer end of it, was in 3 counties, Brevard, Volusia, and Orange. With all that set up, we had less than 1,000 people that actually needed that service. So it's not as big a problem as everybody screams about. At least it wasn't in Florida.
Thank you.
I've been involved with various countries around the world. Germany, I helped them with their initial constitutional claim, and they actually got rid of the machines. They said it's unconstitutional to have a machine because the people can't see it be counted, which was very nice, but no one else has done that. In the Netherlands in 2018, they called me, and I did an analysis of them and told them, they're going to have to get rid of their machines because the Russians had hacked into them, and they want to know how to keep the Russians out. But honestly, you can't keep anybody out. So they caught the Russians. They didn't count the 27 other countries, including probably us, that were trying to get in as well. So I told them we had to get rid of the machines. This was 6 months to go. They actually did. Counted by hand, they haven't gone back. Did it in Italy, did it in France, did it in Spain. So all these other countries around the world count by hand. We don't do that. But to get rid of the fears that is my only purpose, I understand that you cannot have a hand count in California. They won't let you do it. So, but we can secure our elections without having to have that hound count so that everyone can still see everything and still know that their ballot is counted as cast.
We're going to move on to our first question. Supervisor Plummer.
Yes, thank you for being here. Interesting kind of your last comment there, because in your application you say, I can be a unifying catalyst so that all citizens can actually get on board with fully hand-counted ballots. A couple questions related to that. One, you seem to just kind of refute that, but also, what is your sense of, in Shasta County, what portion of the population currently supports hand counting versus doesn't, and how would you get those who are not supportive of hand counting on board with hand counting?
Well, right now it doesn't matter, because right now California will not let you hand count. If you have 99.9% of the people on your side, it still violates the law. Will it violate the law next month? I don't know. With the executive actions coming down and everything, there's a lot in play, and we'll have to be able to deal with that and to move on that, because you really only have 180 days prior to an election to know what the election law is locked in, because that's your cutoff. They usually will. I'm saying usual because they don't always do it this way, but usually give 180 days, and that's the frozen point. So all the laws in effect, 180 days for the election, is the ones that you have to follow. So right now we can't do that, but we can still do the stack method. I mean, we talked about it last time I was here. When you do in the precincts, when they count them out and put in the stacks, you can photograph that. So you now have a record. You can't count it, but you have the record. That would have solved the problem you had with the overspray, because you could then have a record to go back to. Once you lose the chain of custody and everything goes wonky, no one's going to trust the election. And that's the problem. So
to make sure I'm understanding correctly, that statement on your application is pending a change in state law that would allow for hand counting?
Yes.
Okay.
I would prefer hand counting. It's really a way to make sure it's done right and a way that the people can trust it. But you have to follow state law. And right now, they went out of their way with a new bill to make sure you couldn't hand count. So you're stuck with it. When this board said, I want to get rid of the machines and I want to hand count, and everybody was supporting it, California turned around the next day, I think, your ROV ran down and gave testimony, my considered opinion, false testimony on the cost and the way it works. But either way, they passed the bill.
Thank you. Yeah, so shifting gears a little bit, you've run for Congress several times.
Yes.
Has your election integrity beliefs been part of your platform?
Yes.
And is it fair to say that wasn't supported by the majority of the voters in those elections?
Well, I was a Democrat, and I was running in a 60-40 Republican area. So most of the time, it was simply to keep the information out there. That was the purpose. It wasn't until 2000 when Republicans started getting on board. And then 2020, they actually go, holy moly, I might believe that. Of course, the Democrats then went over on the other side, which was very strange. It's kind of like, whatever one party wants, the other party must want the opposite. So then the Democrats went away, and the Republicans. I was working with the Republicans, including, all of them. I've been on General Flynn's show. I've been on Steve Bannon's show. I work with Mike Lindell, which is a really nice guy, in case you didn't know that. I mean, you may not like him, or you may not like his politics, but he's a friendly guy. There's nothing wrong with him.
And then same question that I asked the last candidate, which is, you have about a year to 18 months. What changes would you make to our elections during that time?
That is easy. We're going to put everything so it's transparent. There's going to be cameras everywhere. You will be able to see everything that happens, everything that's processed legally. There are some things that, legally you can't see, so that'll be blocked off. But when that is happening, we're going to make sure that we have people on the ground that can come in and actually look at it. There's not going to be any of this, we're hiding in another room and you can't see it, and we're doing things, we're changing ballots. Actually, that's illegal. You can't do that. You have to have meaningful viewership and observation across the board. The law says that. Most people ignore it. But when you ignore things like that, when you don't give out the documents you could, when you hide everything, immediately people don't trust the election.
Okay, so you'll add cameras to the existing set of cameras that's there.
Yes, cameras.
Anything else?
In the room, cameras for the count, complete transparency of all documents we can give out immediately. People will be able to see everything because the best system is a system where they don't have to trust anyone. They trust the system.
And I'm just going to reiterate again. I mean, it's not a rock concert, not a baseball game. It's a job interview. So please don't clap. Mr. Harmon, or Supervisor Harmon.
Thank you. Thank you for coming here, Florida. I'm going to ask you the same question I asked the last candidate, because I feel like, really, why would you want to move to I mean, we think we're special, and we are, to us, but Florida's pretty nice. and looking at your resume and your background, I mean, it's got to be about election integrity and nothing else, right? The opportunity to. So, can you I don't know, explain that what you see as that opportunity?
Yes, it's about election opportunity. It's about to finish what I've been working on for a quarter of a century, which is a long time. So I've been working on this. This board and this group of people can, something just stopped moving. Anyway, this group and this board of people can actually achieve an area where we can show the world exactly how this can be done so everybody's happy with it. So this side is happy with it and this side is happy with it. Because as long as they know that their vote is counted and can actually visually check it themselves, you know, they don't have to trust the machine is good. They don't have to do anything else because before that machine touches it, you will already have your video. You will already have basically a foundation to know what the election should be. If you are a candidate and you lose, you'll be able to look at that video and go through and check it yourself. You don't have to raise $1 million to do a recount. Obviously, if you really want to contest election, you then do that and then challenge a recount. But you could actually do it beforehand and have all the information up front. Most people, both on the left and the right, just want elections that are fair. And we can do that here. We have a board that seems to be interested. I would go beyond that. We have a board that is interested. And we have a group that is interested. Do you know how many people are in the seats here? If I had this same thing in another county somewhere, you know how many people would be in the seats? 10, maybe. They just don't care that much, you know. And the ones that do don't come to meetings. So it's very impressive that this county is all coming together.
That's pretty amazing to me. I'm happy about it. I'm not questioning you about it. I'm not questioning Shasta County about it. But it's frustrating to me to think that that Shasta County, all the counties in this country, is the county that's in the hot seat, so to speak.
It's the one that impresses me. Plus, I like the people. You know, we get along. Everything's good. It's not cold, which is, you know, very good because I freeze easy. So sometimes when I do these jobs up in New York and stuff, I'm frozen by the time I'm done with them. So this is a beautiful area.
Well, if you're successful, you won't have any problem getting cold here in a couple months because we get hot.
The hotter, the better.
I appreciate you being here, and thank you for answering the question.
Supervisor Kellstrom.
All right. I would like to talk more about your system. I don't remember if it was the last time you interviewed when we had things or if we'd talked privately, but I remember talking face-to-face about filming the ballots as they go on the machine. I hesitate to talk too much about it because California will probably pass a law tomorrow saying that, you know, cameras are illegal inside of an ROV's office. But can you describe that a little bit better? So your program is you're going to get photographic evidence of the ballots before they go into the machines,
right?
And then, from what you said, I mean that way there can't be a cheat because you'll have photographic evidence of, you know, there was 60 yeses and 40 noes, and outside the machine came back and said there was 51 noes and 49 yeses, and you'd have photographic evidence of that.
Correct. And then we need to see what happened in between because you have photographic evidence of the stack. I want this done in the precincts, including the mail-ins, if everyone agrees on that, because a lot of times the mail-ins provide information. You know, people may know who's ahead and who's behind if they process the emails or the mail-in. So people have a question is, would anybody on the staff leak that information? Would they be able to tell what's going on? So I want everything not to be counted until Election Day. And then you send it all to the precinct. You do your signature scan. I hear you don't use software for the signature scan. So you probably should. I know I'm an anti-computer guy sometimes, but the software would be able to set your percentage on what's accepted and what's not. The problem with software is when they set that to 10. 10% means it has the same color of mark on it. That's how, happened in Carrie Lake's thing, until you had like a smiley face. Good enough. Pass it through. So you need to set that at a high percentage, usually 90%, and I would like the board to actually pass something that codifies that 90%. So later on down the road, because I'm old, that doesn't get changed to 10. The ones that get kicked out, you would then go manually, but you go manually on camera so everybody can see. So nobody is tempted to go, he's a Democrat, I'll take him,
So you're for tabulators at the precinct level? Because currently we do not have them.
They could be, or you could bring it all back once you sort the batch. Slows it down a little bit because you've got some areas out there ways, but you could bring them all back after you sort the batch. You put on the seal. You make sure the seal is on camera as well. When you get it back and you see the seal will then be the same, or it better be the same.
Okay.
If it's not, somebody's got some splaining to do.
And then as far as taking pictures of the ballots as they go in the machine you have photographic evidence, of course, that would only show you what you're counting. So in other words, if there's fraudulent ballots, if there's ballots that, from voter rolls, I always use the example, my ex-wife, I got my ex-wife's ballot in the mail for like 3 elections. And then come to find out, because I talked about it, it was removed from the voter rolls. But anyways, so, again, how about drop boxes? How do you feel on drop boxes?
In California, drop boxes are stupid, okay? You've got 25 mail boxes or 25 post offices that have mailbox in them. On your ballot, you can put it back in your own mailbox and send it back. It's all prepaid. It's required prepaid. I don't know if the county's taking advantage of it, but there's also a way you can recoup the money for that. So I don't know if you actually knew about that. I find a lot of people don't. But all that postage, you have to pay it up front. But you can recoup every dime of it from the general fund if you go ahead and do the application process, which is quite a bit of money, so it's worth grabbing. So I would get rid of all except maybe the one in front or inside the.
Well, we're legally allowed. I think we're legally bound to have 4 of them according to the state. So, but we have 20 something now. So.
But what's the point? All they got to do is fill it out, fold it, and put it in the box. They don't have to stamp it. They don't have to walk anywhere.
With our mail out system, you basically have a drop box in the front of your house. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. I think that's okay. One last thing, funding for the cameras. So we're going to install your high-speed cameras or your cameras that are getting the photographic evidence, which I think is a great idea. Where's that funding going to come from?
That's going to come from you.
Okay. All right.
Well, I can't pay it this week. Maybe next.
Yeah, I get it.
Okay.
All right. That's it.
Supervisor Long. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Curtis, for coming today. Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
sir.
I really appreciate all the interest in this position. So have you ever worked in the same questions asked before? Have you ever worked in a formal capacity as a clerk, registrar of voters anywhere?
No, I've worked as a lawyer monitoring the elections or picking them apart afterwards to find out what procedures were followed, all that sort of thing. And apparently I'm good enough at it. I was just asked by the American team that's going to go down to watch Venezuela's election to come down there and watch theirs. So some people think I'm good at it anyway, but basically you probably have to know more than anyone doing the election to actually follow it as an attorney, because you're looking for what they're doing wrong.
Got it.
And they don't know. Most people are not trained properly. It's not they're bad, they aren't trained properly. You've got to go through everything. They have to know exactly what the task is. They have to know what the law is that makes them do that task. Because if someone wants to deviate and no one's there to lead them, it's a leadership thing, they'll go, oh, I'll just do it this way instead. If they know there's a law in place and that's why they're doing it that way, people tend to follow it.
Great, thank you. Do you have any particular certifications or specialized training as an ROV, Registrar of Voters? Not as an attorney for elections, but...
No.
No, okay. Are you currently employed?
Yes, lawyer.
Oh, okay. I thought you had closed your practice?
Well, I still have 5 going, so I'm still, doing those because, if you sue the government, it takes 8 to 10 years. And so I did government corruption law, and we did that. And then if an election law thing comes in, I usually pick those up. But those times for free, unfortunately.
So you're not currently employed in New York as a public defender?
I do that too, yes.
Oh, I didn't see that on the application.
No. Okay. I don't know.
Okay. You signed an affidavit, 12/6 of 2004, documenting your employment with Yang Enterprises, Inc.,
Yes.
YEI, and the Florida Department of Transportation. What were your exact dates? Because I didn't see that on your application. What were your dates of the affidavit?
I have no idea.
Do you remember when you worked at Yang? From what dates?
Prior to 2000?
Well, you were asked to develop your protocol in October of 2000.
Okay.
So it was prior to 2000 that you were with them?
Well, 2000 and forward, yes.
Okay. If selected as Shasta County's ROV, how would you handle working with California election laws as they relate to machine tabulation, no hand counting, vote by mail, no voter ID requirements?
Well, I would follow those, but you have to remember that there's a lot of other things in play right now. There's the Huntington Beach cases that are going on, which could change things, good or bad. There's also an executive order that is out there which changes all of that, changes all the ID requirements and everything else. Now, that California and New York kind of screwed up, and they together went there and sued for the same exact reason the Trump administration, which makes that case go directly to the Supreme Court, which is not the friendliest court they'll find. So with a 6-3 margin, I'm assuming that will be upheld, and it will go, change the voter ID. It will change it to a one-day election. So all the hardness of getting things done in California may change. If it doesn't, you follow the law as it is, and that's what you do.
Thank you. If you were asked to do something that could get you disbarred as an attorney, a very serious thing, or i.e. anything that might violate California election law as it stands right now, what would be your take on that, and what would you do?
I don't violate the law. It's that simple.
Yeah, because we had a registrar that came in before and was skeptical, and he was an attorney as well. And he came in and said there were no problems with our current elections department and that he was not going to violate any California law, same kind of thing. So I think some of, pardon me?
Did he?
He did not violate the law.
Okay, I'll just check it.
No, that's absolutely, he came to the opinion that there were no problems within our current Registrar of Voters, and then he did not choose to violate any laws to make any changes that would be in violation of federal or California election laws. So that was his opinion. That's why I wanted to get your take on it, because sometimes it's something to talk about things, but you still have to follow the law.
We have to follow the law,
Right.
precisely.
Right, exactly. Thank you. Your app, let's see here.
Last question, Supervisor Long.
Okay. Your application says you've spoken across the country to debunk all the excuses locking us into electronic machines and the misinformation that machines are not connected to the internet. I'm just curious why you would say that when we have California laws that you're aware of, and how would this statement, does that calm things down in a community? Does that bring additional trust in our process? Does that bring, if they were to follow the laws, when you say those kinds of things?
Well, the laws change. In fact, the laws change to keep you guys from actually doing a hand count. So laws will change, and you have to follow whatever law that is. I would be absolutely thrilled, if I got to write the law if you went to a hand count system 100%, and that's the way you did it. Right now, you can't do that. But if you can, that will be great. I'll be glad to implement it. The one-day voting, right now in California, you vote on election day. But you have up to 10 days for your mail-in ballot to get there after election day. You have 28 days to cure the ballot if you contact it. So in California, elections don't really get determined for a month, sometimes a month and a half. If it goes to 1 day, we'll have to speed that up, which means the cure process has to be better. The mail can't sit on the desk for 2 days before you get a chance to check it and cure it. You have to get on that right away because you want to give people enough time to cure.
Sure.
So
Thank you.
you don't have 28 days anymore.
Right. First question, explain how you would create optimal working relationships with elected officials such as ourselves, the county executive officer, and department heads within the county.
Well, I'm very open. I make sure I would never deceive you. I've heard all this stuff about, the $2 million hiding out there. We don't know where that went. I would never do that. If you make a decision, I will follow it, even if I don't agree with it. And I might not, but I will follow it. You will be in charge. That's the way it is. That's the way it drops down. You have to take care of what's going on in the whole county, so you have to have information for the whole county.
Well, actually, in California, if you were to be appointed and assume office, you become an elected official, recognized as such. So therefore, the only jurisdiction this body would have would be over your budget.
Yes.
So any direction or culture that you want to do within the elections office is going to be completely up to you. So that will go to my next question: is how would you manage criticism by press and community members in reference to your handling of an election?
Well, they're going to see everything. So most people, when they see everything, and they'll see it all in the press, and I will bring in both sides to work out any concerns they have well before the election. So I plan on having a meeting at least once a month, maybe bi-monthly, with groups to go through whatever their concerns are and to make sure they're addressed. None of this, we'll just ignore it and go on. Nothing's going to be hidden. And, that will be a major change to some degree because a lot of election departments, they get very loyal to each other. And so they start covering for each other's mistakes. And then by the time you get to litigation, it's just a mess. It's like Fred knew this 3 months ago, but he didn't tell on Sally because he liked Sally. So you have to, you have to get that separated and get people to know that the elections actually don't belong to them. They belong to the people. That's who they're serving. And that's just the way it is. So I would, do
Great.
it.
Thank you. March 25th, President Trump had an executive order. What are your thoughts about some of the things that have been brought up, and not just in that, but in other press conferences he's had around voter ID, cutting federal spending to states that don't comply with securing the elections, limited mail-in voting, making Election Day a national holiday, et cetera? What are your thoughts about all of that?
I think most of it will be upheld, including withholding funds. There's only been one case through the Supreme Court in the last 50 years where it was not allowed for the federal government to pull funds if you didn't do what they wanted to do. It was the independent business case against Spiegel, I believe is the name. And that was the only case ever in the entire history of the Supreme Court where they've said, no, you have to leave the funds there. So I think it'll all be upheld. I am told that there are several executive orders in the pipeline. They're waiting for this one to go through, and then you'll see another flurry. You got to admit this man signs a lot of orders.
Yeah.
I think he signs 20 a day. I don't know what he does.
And I would like to, my final question I'm going to have right now is actually from a constituent, because I do ask my constituents to reach out, whether on social media or through email. On your application, you had stated that you had never been fired or terminated from a job. And then, I don't know, this constituent had said something about you were fired in, I believe it was 2000, was it 2001, maybe you got the same email. In 2001, can you explain if in fact you were terminated or fired in 2001?
Well, I viewed it as fired, but that wasn't the legally correct definition. If it was, I would have made $2 million off with the other person that worked for the department that did get fired, because then it would have been unlawful termination. But for me, I was a contractor. And their excuse was that my contract had run out. I had already been a whistleblower, so I reported to them that the program that unfortunately I was the expert on was no longer being supported by the company. Yang Enterprises was still billing $2 million 3 times a year for support for the program that had no support. So I told them. So they said, well, you're the expert on that. We don't really need you. We need somebody else on the next one we do. And they started to do the replacement, and I think they did use Hummingbird. I forget what about that.
So you're a 1099.
1099,
Yeah,
right.
you can't fire 1099.
Can't fire 1099, but you can get rid of their contract.
Correct.
Back in 2000, you had no real way of doing anything if they did it that way. Now, they've changed the law, and you get a little more protection.
Thank you for clearing that up. Does any supervisor have any follow-up questions? We'll start with Supervisor Long, since we started with Supervisor Plummer last time. One follow-up question. Turn your mic on.
I asked this question of the other candidate, so it's kind of a standard long question, so bear with me. Appreciate it. The clerk ROV must maintain the highest level of knowledge and expertise in the elections process, as well as election laws, policies, and court decisions of fed, state, and local jurisdictions. Describe your current level of understanding of election laws, California in particular, policies and court decisions, and how you would stay up to speed.
Yes. Well, I'm boring enough. I actually read those things. And so I'm considered an expert. That's why they picked us to do the challenge in Florida for the presidential election in 2016. There are a lot of law firms around there. They picked us. So that's pretty indicative. We've done lots of cases. Most of the cases for election law are losers, simply because the law is written not did we do something wrong, but did we do something wrong, and in no time frame at all can you show enough votes to flip an election. And if you can't show that, and usually you can't because you're blocked out on discovery, then the case goes away. So essentially, I've been doing this a long time. It's not that hard. It'll be harder if the executive order goes through, because generally a state will respond to a push down with a bunch of new laws. So, but I'm probably the only one who would be able to actually keep up to it.
And so kind of a follow-up to that, you have offices in New York, Florida, Dominican Republic, correct?
We don't have Dominican Republic anymore.
So you lost that one.
Yes, COVID closed it.
So is it safe to say that your experience, your elections expert experience that you were describing, is in all states, or what particularly with California are you a subject matter expert in election law?
Well, back in 2004, I did a lot of work on election law in California because I worked with Deborah Bowden, I think is her name. She was Secretary of State, and I was the one that helped them put in their initial audit program so that they could actually audit what they were doing. Of course, now that's been watered down to nothing. It started out 10%, now it's like, go count one ballot. We're good. They just don't want to mess with it. So that's been changed dramatically. So, I can do law. So I can study the law, and I can make sure that everything works properly. And we will do it all under camera so everybody and their dog can look at it, and if we're wrong, they can tell us.
Thank you. Supervisor Crye.
Probably the only follow-up question is, so again, you're taking photographic evidence of the ballots going through the machines. How are you going to make sure that those ballots are valid? In other words, voter rolls. How are you going to handle the voter rolls and make sure that they are only legitimate ballots that are coming in?
Well, your voter rolls are a problem because you don't control them. California controls them. So then they give you this electronic poll book, and things can change in there. We had a case down in Texas where the poll book, we had somebody was sitting there doing an election, and the poll book suddenly started rising, even though nobody was coming in. And so they took photographic evidence, the whole 9 yards. Nothing really happened, but it shows the poll book could shift. So what I would suggest is that we use a paper poll book next to their electronic poll book. And we use that poll book to sign everybody in. And then you do a reconciliation to make sure the thing actually matched, make sure the votes actually matched, make sure your votes match the poll book. I heard that you were lost or gained, I don't know which, 2,000 votes last time. Completely unacceptable. You need to do reconciliation at all phases. So once you photograph all those people putting stacks of 50, and if they miscount, it won't matter because they miscounted on camera. So, if it's 49 and they did miscount or they can't count, you got everything stamped, you got everything sealed. When that goes up, you still got your record. Those numbers need to match your poll book. There shouldn't be 500 ballots inserted here or there. Just shouldn't happen. Shouldn't be 2,000 ballots on that process. As long as everything is on camera, they're going to be hard pressed to do that. Someone might still try, but they'll get caught.
Thank you. Supervisor Harmon.
So a question from a business experience. Taking over a new business, an existing business, but taking over as a new owner. You understand the comparison, right?
Right,
so it's
right.
like you go in there, there's an existing crew. I guess my concern is how you're going to handle that so that it's a smooth transition should you get the job.
Well, first I will find out what they know. So I'll just have them, I'll have them run elections. So I'll find out what they know. Then I'll go through it and find out what's wrong. And it may be nothing wrong, but, probably will be. And then I'll go through it and find out what it is. And then I'll know what to teach them directly. We'll have to handle each individual on an individual level to find out what their knowledge is and, to work them up to it. We'll have to convince them that, you can't hide behind the office anymore because everything is going to be transparent. So, if the people want to come in, we're going to tear down those walls. That's...
So my question is more on the lines of, I understand you can figure out if there's issues, you go through
right.
the processes and whatever, but it's about people
Mm-hmm.
and how to motivate them and how to get them on board and how to you've got a new regime here. It's not really a new regime. That's probably a bad description, but you got a new manager.
Right.
And I don't know how much. Well, I know a little bit about how much management you've done because you're a businessman. But,
right.
I've
had to deal with lawyers. They're horrible.
I know. I'm just being honest with you. I want to know how you're going to how you would handle that should you get the opportunity.
You just treat them like people. They are professionals. They've been doing this. They know. They may mess it up on occasion. That doesn't mean they did it on purpose. It's a matter of leadership. You actually have to show them exactly what you need them to do and define why it's that way. If you're just off in the air every time, they'll do whatever they want to do anyway. So if you treat them with respect, you find out what they know, you fix the problem, and they'll be on this journey where everybody can see them. So, they'll be stars in a sense, so they can really show off how good they can be. And most people will rise to the occasion. There'll be some that won't. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe not in this department. You can't really say. Can't even guess. But most people try to rise to the occasion. I think they will. Elections aren't that hard. You just have to follow the rules.
Well, they seem like they are here.
Supervisor Plummer.
I'm done. Thank you.
Do you believe Shasta County's elections over the last 20 years or so have had fraudulent results that don't reflect the accurate count? And if so, who do you believe is responsible for the fraudulent results?
I actually never speculate such things because it would simply be a guess. It's even when I talk about, the machines being bad, I don't say the machines are bad because you don't know. What you know is that they could be bad and that the results always seem a little screwy, and then it makes people not accept the election. So if there's an error, it actually hurts the guy who won more than the guy who lost because everybody looks and goes, oh, you cheated or the machine cheated or something happened. And that's not always the case. I did one down in Congressional 22 in Texas, right? And they were recording the machine totals in his whole district. At 8:36 p.m., every Democrat and Independent had exactly the same number of votes in 7 different counties across 2 different vendors. Does that mean the Republican cheated? It was an R+7. He didn't have to cheat. He didn't have to run. But you saw this pattern, and it's like, what's going on here? So, so I never speculate. Are you happy with them? If you're happy with them, that's fine. If you think that something's off, trying to speculate on whose fault it is, it's a little late to go to that game. You kind of have to get that early.
One quick last question. The photographic system that you were describing earlier, what communities have incorporated that and are currently using that system?
Nobody. That's why I'm here in Shasta County.
And related to that, what election-related, could you give us an example of an election-related lawsuit that you've won?
We didn't win any. Actually, we did. It didn't amount to anything, though. But it was an election down in, where was that? I think it was, I don't know. It's been a while, so I don't know exactly where he was, but, they messed up the way they were doing the order of the candidates, even though it comes down from the state and you're supposed to follow it. So they came out on the ballot, and we challenged it, and they had to reproduce the ballots. But not much.
Mr. Curtis, one of the things that has come up since the last time you were here, and then has come up again even today, you make reference a lot to party affiliation. And this is obviously a nonpartisan office. I don't even know what that means anymore, per se. But why do you think why do you think both sides can't ever seem to get on the same page? When in 16, one group is yelling it's all rigged. In 2020, it's this narrative that it's the most secure election in history. But and it goes back years. Why do you think there's such joining of forces to really care about elections? Why do you think that is?
I think it's pushed down from the top. With the Democrats, they were on board. And when Trump started pushing the agenda, suddenly everything that came out of Washington was, you're an election denier, right? We were election deniers for 15 years. Suddenly,
when you say we, who do you refer to as we?
Democrats.
Democrats.
Yeah. So sorry, I was one. Still am. Anyway, but it was always us trying to fix it. You'll see pictures of Kamala Harris, of Hillary Clinton, all talking about this issue. Suddenly in 2016, 2020, with the push down from the top, everybody changed their tone, and the media changed its tone. So, and then the Republicans started picking it up, but they were a little better at it. They were more organized. They were more, instead of just yelling about it, they started trying to make a difference. So it's really relatively new that we're moving in this direction, but we are moving in the direction. So,
right. Is there any last thing you'd like to tell this board in closing that we didn't ask?
Well, I hope you're impressed enough that you hire me this time instead of making me go all the way back again. And, I'm impressed with the board. I'm impressed with the citizenry. I think together we can pretty much make this the gold standard. And then all those communities who don't have it will have it. Because there's a lot of people out there. They just need that first step.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome to stay in chambers if you'd like as your interview's over. So we'll bring on the third candidate.